Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have roll call, please.
Councilmember Waller,
Yes.
Helvey,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Phillipson,
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes, thank you. We're going to change things up just a little bit tonight. We're going to have citizen comments, and then we're going to move, after, if anyone wants to speak to us, then we're going to move the item A under city manager report, the police department memo, just above the insurance resolution. And then we'll continue on with the rest of the agenda.
Oh, after.
Okay? Citizen comments. If anyone would like to speak to the council, now would be the appropriate time to do that. If you want to speak to the council, approach the microphones, state your name and your address, and
To.
what you're speaking about. Okay, hearing none, we'll continue on. That was your opportunity to speak. So, Morris Police Department memo.
So about 3 weeks ago, I learned that we were going to have police officers leaving the police department. And one of the things that I did is I immediately reached out to the sheriff and told the sheriff that it appears that we have a major problem in the police department and we are no longer going to be able to staff a police department and be able to perform 24/7 services within the city of Morris. I then started reaching out and talking to officers, and it was very clear to me that, and I do not plan on getting into any of the reasons why, but it was clear to me that police officers were going to be leaving, and we're going to be short-staffed. And we know and understand in this environment that you're not going to find new ones. All you have to do is turn on the news, and you're going to find out that police officers in Minnesota are shorthanded. There's not a lot of them going into the profession. And in some cases, the first resignation that came about, the individual is no longer going to be in law enforcement. We then learned that we had a second officer that was a candidate for a final position in Alexandria. We actually learned today that police officer put in the resignation. We also know and understand that we were short one already. We also know and understand that we have one police officer within our department that cannot perform the duties as a police officer. We have an 8-person police department with a chief as part of that number. And so in the end, we're going to be left in 2 weeks with 4 police officers. And so what I'm telling you is that we're not going to be able to reorganize a police department, staff it, and continue to have one. It's just not going to happen. It's not possible in this environment. So what's the next step? The next step is something that we actually started looking at before, and that is, and what I'm suggesting here is that the City Council reestablish the Joint City-County Commission on Services, and we get together with them right away. I'm suggesting a meeting date on July 20th. I know Councilmember Wallers, Councilmember Salvi was on that commission before. I know and understand from the county perspective that they have individuals that are willing to be on that. And then we sit down, we take a look at what is the next step. You know, my number one goal in this whole thing is that we have to have somebody answering a 911 call. We are not going to be able to do that.
The 911 call can be answered by the sheriff's department. They are required by law to answer that call. The city does not have to do that. So if we are in the position where we can't do it, the county has to step up and by law has to answer that call. So we do have some leeway there not to get.
Well, that's why we have to sit down and talk.
But
because-
they also need to follow, and the sheriff also needs to understand that that's what's going to happen, and he's going to have to start staffing accordingly. Because we have been pulling that for them for a lot of years because we've had that. So they need to be watching what they're doing according to what's happening to our department. Because they are the ones that are required by law to do it.
Now, I guess I'd like to just weigh in, Blaine. As you indicated, Brian and I were on the commission the last time we looked at that, and we decided against it for a lot of different reasons, but I disagree with you, Blaine. I think there's some other options that are available to us as a city. I've lived in Morris my entire life. We've always had a police presence in this town. And as long as I'm sitting in this chair, there will be a police presence in Morris. Now, what I would support is possibly looking at things. We might have to do policing differently. Maybe we don't offer 24/7. Maybe we don't have 8. Maybe we look at reducing our force. Maybe some of the services we're currently providing will change. But my belief is the situation we're in today is temporary. You talked about nobody getting into this profession, and that has a lot to do with the current policies that are in place going across this country. The soft on crime approach has not worked well for this country, and it's not just in Morris, Minnesota. We're asking law enforcement people to do their job with one hand tied behind their back. And I sympathize with every one of them that are in that industry right now. They've got a tough job to do. But we, as city council representatives and elected officials, we have an obligation to the citizens of Morris to provide a safe community. And I would argue that a lot of people have come to Morris to live because of that very reason. They feel safe and secure in our community because of law enforcement. And now, in my opinion, is not the time for us to look at reducing and turning our backs on the citizens of Morris. And I won't do it as long as I'm here.
Well, that's fine, but you have no choice. You have no choice in this. We do not have police officers that are going to be able to be part of the police department. You have to understand that. You can't just magically snap your fingers and then have, police officers come in here. And this isn't the end of it. There are other police officers that are looking. So you can sit here. I have to try to figure out what is going to happen as far as covering the citizens of Morris. And so what I'm telling you as a city manager is the solution is we get together with the county, we sit down, we talk about it, we can look at what services do we want to provide, but you cannot, with 4 people, you cannot run a schedule. So
Well,
now are we
the
just going
services that you're providing, I agree.
Right.
But we don't have to, Blaine. We can restructure that department. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing.
Well, we can
But my
sit down
point
and
is,
we can talk about that. We can sit down and talk about what is it going to look like moving forward, because it's not cut and dry that the county just has to do everything that we want them to do. It is not cut and dry. And we need to have that discussion in the joint city-county, because
It's not cut and dry.
because, and that's one of the things that we need to look at. The possibility of still providing the services that the people in this community are going to want to have. And like I said, the number one goal is to answer that call. We cannot run a 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week schedule. So you're telling me right now that we get rid of that?
I'm not saying that's.
Well, then we have to.
I'm not saying that's what we're gonna do.
but-
I'm saying that's an
But we
option
have to
that
right
has to be
now,
on the
or
table.
we have to work with the county. We have to, because we
That's
can't
fine.
schedule
On
right
short
now.
term, I agree with that, but, if I'm understanding your recommendation, it's disbanding the Morris Police Department, and I don't like that.
I don't like it anymore. I grew up here.
Actually, the way I read it, the recommendation is to reestablish the city-county joint commission.
Right.
And with that maybe being the major topic, there may be other topics. I agree with you that, and hopefully, that it is a temporary thing. We don't
Yeah, I
know
just-
that. We don't know that, but the thing is today, we're here today, and we need to provide services to the community. And to do that, we have to expand, change the way we're doing business.
Well, I agree, we're gonna probably have to change the way we're doing police work, I understand that, I know that, I understand that very well, but I just don't want us to make a knee-jerk reaction to the current
Well,
environment. we're in.
I think that was made when the officers decided to leave.
Well,
It really was, because you have to understand that with them leaving, we don't have anybody left to be able to do this work. And we can get into a discussion about, you know, what happened, but we have to do it in a different setting than this. But, you know, you just have to understand that's where we're at in this moment in time. And like I said, I reached out to the sheriff immediately because he has to know and understand that when 911 gets a call, somebody's gonna have to be there to answer it. And then we sit down, we try to figure out what is the next evolution of law enforcement gonna look like in the city of Morris, and that's what I'm telling you.
Well, and I know you probably can't discuss why officers are leaving, but that is a concern of mine.
Right.
Why are they leaving? I mean, don't we deserve the right to figure out that? I mean, what is the root cause?
okay, we have basically two questions on this. One is basically making a motion to reestablish the city-county joint commission.
Did we ever disestablish it?
Probably
Well,
not.
we just stopped meeting, I
Yeah,
think is
so I
what
mean, all we
happened.
need to do is set a
Probably
meeting date,
Right.
Yeah.
correct? With that, would you say that'd be correct, Aaron?
Yeah, I think you could just
It's not like
give
it,
indication to Blaine that you want to have a meeting date.
Right.
it's not
that's
like it
what I
was
think so, too.
disbanded or
Yeah,
stuff.
we didn't
so
disband it.
it's
Yeah, we
just
just-
that, like the
It would just
commission.
stop being. Yeah.
And I think we also need to have a work session amongst ourselves to figure out what we want to do as a collective unit to, when these guys go forward, or whoever our reps are to meet with the county, but we need to sit down and figure out what
And
we're.
that is the second decision that we need to do. And that would be a closed-door meeting, not an open meeting. It would be just amongst the council. And after the meeting, I understand that we prepare a statement as to what.
So what the mayor is
happened.
saying, and what I said to the city council is I'm the city manager and the buck stops with me. So anything beyond me to get into a discussion about personnel issues, whether it's with anybody underneath the city manager, does not happen in an open meeting. It cannot happen in an open meeting. So what they can do is they can sit down with me as a city manager and hold me accountable for what happened with law enforcement, and we'll have that discussion, we'll record it, and then the results of that, any determination of what the city council makes can be released. Because I'm telling you, this is a systemic problem that is happening not in just Morris, it's happening across the state. And you have to understand, you know, you can't just magically produce people. And again, none of this was brought to my attention until about 3 weeks ago. And we cannot stop it. The ship has already left. We can't turn it back around. We can't retool it because it involves people. And people are not there in the market right now. And you just need to understand that. So let's meet with the county. We can talk about, you know, what the options are, and then if you want, you can establish a meeting, meet with me, and we can have that discussion about, you know, what happened with this entire situation and make that available to people.
Okay, Blaine, you had mentioned July 20th. That would be a recommended.
June 20th,
Or-
next Monday.
I wrote down June.
Yep, so then
Okay,
typically, I think we
June 20th.
I think we met in the afternoon, didn't we, like
Yeah, we did like 4 or 5 or something.
4
wasn't it?
or 5 o'clock. So I'll reach out to Rebecca, and then we'll sit down and we'll figure out a schedule and get everybody
It
together.
was with Commissioner Wallers and Commissioner Staples.
Staples.
Right.
And you guys are both able to make that work?
I should, the 20th, right?
June 20th? What
I'll
time?
double check it. I don't have my.
5:15 or something?
Yeah, we'll figure it out. It'll be like 4 or 5 o'clock.
So I guess do we even need a motion for that?
I don't think you do.
No,
I
we set a meeting.
think it's just important to understand that in the short term, there has to be a change made so that we have people that are gonna answer calls. Because we had one officer that left today, was the last day. That officer is no longer a police officer. We have another officer that gave a notice today that's gonna be gone in 2 weeks. And then from there, you know, we'll have that discussion in the joint meeting about, you know, some of the potential options.
I just think it's really important that we do talk about the options. I mean, obviously, we got a large room of people here that are concerned about this, and I'm thinking probably the same concern that Kevin has expressed. But that, because Blaine, when I read this and I heard what Kevin, like, we're done, it's over, and you're done. And I just think you can't portray that kind of thing, because that
Well,
that's scary.
It is scary. I'm scared for everybody.
But we don't have to sit and, I mean, there are options. The short term is we convene, we look at what we have, because, yeah, you can't lose 4 people and expect that. But not to press the panic button and think there'll never be another police officer that's
Okay.
going to apply
Well,
ever coming out of.
we know-
No, and I know that, but that is what I hear.
But you-
and so I think
yeah.
while we need to be realistic, we also need to say, okay, let's.
This is the hardest thing I've done in my 32 years as a city administrator. Never in my dreams, and I'm getting ready, you know, I'm at the end of my career, never in my dreams have I ever imagined that I would learn that my police department is leaving me. Never in my dreams would I imagine that, you know, but the reality is, what do you do next? And we are in an environment where there are cities in Minnesota that advertise for police officers and they get no candidates. There are departments short all around the state of Minnesota. And so I'm just being real, I'm being realistic about it. And at the same time, you were blindsided by this in a memo in a city council packet, which I had a very difficult time dealing with that. But I had to do it that way because there was no opportunity to call a special meeting because we had to get action started on this. And actually, as a city manager, I do have the ability to get stuff started before I even get into a city council meeting. And lucky for that, we were able to reach out to the county and start looking at this. But no city the size of Morris should be without a police department. But if you can't find police officers, what do you do? And so that's the reality of the world that we're living in today in Morris and actually in Minnesota and probably even across the country.
Blaine, when I was reading your memo, I kind of sat back and, asked myself the same thing. How did we get here? How did we get to this spot? As a city, I know we made some decisions within the last year or so and I wasn't totally in favor of it, but when we eliminated the Police Civil Service Commission, we eliminated that, and I at the time I thought there was a benefit to keeping that because they can assist you, the city manager, with different things that are related to the policing of our community. And you have a city to run. You have a lot of responsibility, and that commission I thought had value and merit, and we decided to eliminate that because I think at the time we were told there was just an overlap between the union and whatever, so there was a conflict in that regard. But I think that's something we should sit down and take a look at again. If you remember how that worked, it was a 3-body community member. It was Peg Rinkenberger, Dale Peterson, and I believe John Amundson sat on that, and I think there is definitely a benefit. And I was looking at some examples of what other cities have enacted, and I'll just read for the mission statement from the Rochester Police Department, or from the city of Rochester. They one of the responsibilities that they have is monitoring and reviewing of police operation and evaluate the appropriate discipline and termination of officers. They actually review the performance of the police chief, and we actually can set, other things if we want them to assist in overseeing police operations. So I think there's some merit in taking another look at it, is kind of what I wanted to challenge this council with.
Are we looking at a work session prior to the 20th?
I think we should.
That should be then, so the 20th is gonna be
Yeah,
next
so-
Monday, so we need to hit something this week.
Yep. What's everybody's schedule like?
We'll just make it open.
Thursday?
That's what kinda hit my mind after.
Thursday,
that.
5:15?
Yeah.
I can do earlier too. I mean, it's not a problem for me to, the boys,
Does that
you
work
guys
for
next
you?
to me.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah,
think?
whatever.
I can do earlier too. I mean,
Doesn't matter.
2, 3, 4,
Let's-
what,
Probably 4 would be the earliest I can.
Oh, do you want to do it earlier?
it's fine, it's gonna.
I'm retired, so you just name the time there, Mayor.
I'll be here too, so.
Then 4, I mean,
I kinda
earlier
went
the
with,
better,
yeah.
then
Yeah.
kind of
Should we do 4:15?
4 o'clock?
how
Mr.
works.
Miller?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to have a work session for the council on Thursday, June 16th at 4 PM.
I'll second.
Here?
Yes, here at the chambers.
Sure. Do we want to do here or the conference room at the city hall?
We can do it there.
You want to do conference room?
Yep.
Okay, at the conference room of City Hall.
Okay, so we're gonna have a work session at 4 o'clock on June 16th. That will be a closed-door work session with us 5 and the city manager.
Well, and just to be clear, the purpose of that meeting, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is to look at the performance of the city manager with regards
With regards to
to the
this
police
issue.
department, and nothing else. And then afterwards, you can make a statement about what you've learned in that meeting.
That meeting will have to be closed, and you announce it at the beginning of the meeting that you're closing the meeting for employment review purposes. You cite the statute, which I don't have off the top of my head right here. But then you need to record that meeting so that if anybody wants to review it, when it becomes available, it's recorded.
And we're capable of doing that over there, recording?
We should be able to do that, because we record here too.
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, okay, so we will take that up on Thursday. So back to our agenda. Joel is here. We're gonna talk about insurance.
Everyone's always favorite topic. I've gathered that multiple times.
Feel bad everybody's doing that.
Yeah. Nobody
And
wants to hear
you
about
folks are
insurance.
certainly welcome to stay. You don't have to. Just, I would only ask that as you leave, please keep it down a little bit, so.
Good evening, council members. It's always nice to see you, and I know it's always challenging times and a lot of different factors. And I mean, most recently, when you think of insurance, you can't get too far from pretty significant claims nationwide and certainly hitting home here too. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But I always like to give a state of the state in terms of insurance and what not only cities are dealing with, but what organizations are, different businesses locally and across the U.S. because we continue to be in very challenging times as it relates to insurance. And you look at from a macro basis, what are some of those factors that everyone is going through? It's within the last few years and in the last decade, really, it's the most storms that we've ever had, the most unprecedented, catastrophic, highest billion-dollar events, multiple ones. In addition to, you'll have litigation costs that continue to rise. More people, we're in a sue-happy environment that continues. And you look at inflationary pressures. We're at a level higher than we've ever seen in decades. Cost of construction is through the roof, supply chain issues. Just means at the end, when things come to being paid, it just costs more. So that obviously translates into insurance, and insurance companies are paying more. On the whole, they've had to respond by making rate increases. And that's a general statement, with the exception, apart from work comp, of Minnesota cities and through the league's program. It continues to be one of the strongest performing programs as it relates to insurance. And apart from work comp differences, what we'll talk about, you actually would have saw a premium decrease. And that's including coverage changes, increasing your building limits. And so we'll talk about that, but again, directly attributable to the strength and management of the insurance program through Bremer in the league. So we'll go through line by line, and we'll certainly answer any questions as it goes through. And this would be provided in your board packet, but I can give you a highlight on my paper as well. When you're looking at your property coverages, each year, as they do every year, the league contracts with a appraisal firm, and they specialize in appraising cities and city values across the nation, but specific to Minnesota as well. And they'll look at what is the cost of construction doing and what are appropriate replacement cost values that the city should have, and they apply then a percentage increase. So there's a table here, but you'll see what your expiring coverage is going to and then what it's going from. Essentially, it's roughly a 6.3% limit increase on your buildings and a 3.9% on your contents. And those specific percentage values that come directly from that appraisal firm. But even including those changes, and there's one other difference for it, your property premium is down about $8,700. Again, in the industry at large, most people are seeing pretty significant property increases of premiums apart from cities. Another reason that the premium is down there a little bit is your cyber insurance used to be baked within the property line as far as the premium goes. They split it out so it has its own line now. It's essentially the same coverage. It's just showing there was a need to identify that, yes, the cities do have cyber coverage, so they made it its own premium line. But apart from that, your rate decrease on your property was about 9%. Equipment breakdown falls within that head bucket of your property coverage. That just adjusted very minimally. And your liability was also down about $1,500. That's based on your exposures that we get from your renewal applications, but in general, positive performance from the city and the league as a whole. Your liquor liability was down just slightly based on sales. Your fireworks liability is down, and that's just confirming adequate controls with your contractor. Your crime bond is just up slightly. Your automobile from 27 to 31, that's in part from some vehicle changes. And then your excess liability or umbrella, that also adjusted slightly up. But again, overall, those lines by themselves, it would be down about $900 over expiring. Where you're going to see your change in your premium is your workers' compensation. And in part because you had higher payroll than you did last year, and that's a basis of your premium is your payroll and your corresponding rates. The other thing that we saw, and it's really the only significant change from a claims perspective, it relates to public safety workers. And the league has seen a dramatic increase in post-traumatic stress claims. They first became compensable in 2013. And that continues to rise, and most of those claims comes from police force. So that's about 30% of all the league's claim cost is related to those claims. And so they've identified that and really doubled down on resources as far as education, knowing that yes, those are okay, yes, it is a thing, yes, there is help. And those are all available to the city. Apart from those, the work comp rates probably would have decreased roughly about 25%. So overall, context, back to the macro, the average rate increase in the U.S. for businesses and organizations Through last year and first quarter of this year, it was a little over 13%. So that's what the average business and organization in the U.S. sees. Your premium increase, including all exposure changes, was 2.9. So you look from 13, 2.9, only because of work comp. So it really shows the strength of your insurance program with the league and the city's management of claims. On the positive on the work comp, you'll see on page 2, your experience modification factor increased by a few points. You still have a couple policy periods of pretty significant claims being paid out. And your experience mod from the state is a 3-year snapshot of claims. So 18, 19, and 20 policy periods. The 18 and 19 were the 2 that had higher claims payment. So next year, one of those bigger ones will fall off. Last year and this year, significant improvements on your claims and what has been paid out. So you'll see the benefits and reduced premiums if everything stays on track as far as your claims performance. So overall, I'm certainly happy to answer any questions, and we thank you for the opportunity to serve the city, and for council's approval is a renewal total of, you'll see in the box there, $376,857.
And we continue, Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, but we made a decision a few years ago about the no deductible workers' comp.
Yes, and thanks for, as I closed, I forgot to mention that section. So yes, every year we run a deductible analysis, and we look typically at a 5-year period, but we did 6 as well this year, to say, what has your claims experience been, and what does it average out versus the best premium choice? Because you can go 0 to 50,000, and there's a credit structure all the way up to 50,000. 50,000, you get the most reduction of premium, but you're banking on the side that you don't have a significant claim, because if you get 2 of them over 50,000, you could be pretty easily 100,000 additional costs. Based on those 2 years of higher claims, your 5-year average still is the no deductible choice. That's been your cheapest premium option. So we review that every year. We look at claims as far as assistance of what can be done, and a couple of those claims are kind of those shock loss type of ones that you have the same scenario 9 times out of 10, it probably wouldn't happen. But so for the time being, yes, the recommendation is to remain with no deductible.
Great, thank you. Any other questions of Joel? All right, thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We'll
thanks
bring
you
it
guys.
back to
Appreciate
the
it.
council for the resolution.
I'll move in that resolution accepting the insurance renewal proposal.
I
I'll
will,
s-
go ahead.
You got it.
No, you start.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We'll have roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selby,
Yes.
Wallers,
Yes.
Felton,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Joel. Okay, moving on. We have no public hearings tonight. Reading and approval of minutes from our May 24th regular meeting.
I'll move approval of the regular minutes from the May 24th meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And we have the same May 24th condensed version for the paper.
I will move approval of the condensed minutes.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have the consent agenda consisting of the audit of city bills, application for exempt permit from Assumption, gambling reports from the Legion, and the transit report. And I will move approval of the items on the consent agenda.
I will second.
Any discussion or questions on any of the items?
What about item 4, welding supplies, or what are we building? It's like $8,000 worth of welding supplies. Is that something to do with the playground sets that we're putting up, or?
No, I'd have to go back and check, but I know, I think one of the things Brad was gonna do was, do some work building a trailer for, the new generator that we got from the DNR.
Oh, okay.
It's
Yeah.
actually water treatment plant chemicals is what it is.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
it.
the bulk
Yeah,
of
so
that
it's-
is water treatment plant.
7745.
Oh, okay, yeah, I said, the vendor name, American Welding Supplies, okay, then
Yeah.
WTP Chemicals.
And that's
Okay,
why
I see,
Whitney's
yeah.
here.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Whitney.
Read a little further maybe next time, huh?
Any other concerns or questions on the consent agenda? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have petitions and requests and communications. We have an acceptance of some donations. Get to it here. We have $25 from the local VFW auxiliary in memory of their departed VFW auxiliary members. They're not asking for specifics like we want this tree and we want to put it here or anything like that. They just want it as part of our program. So I'm sure the tree board will appreciate that. And I think we should do that one first.
I will move to accept the donation from the VFW Auxiliary to the tree board for the amount of $25.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And we have a donation from SCMC, Stevens Community Medical Center, to the Morris Fire Department in the amount of $500. Again, I don't believe there's any requests for that, to do with that money.
I'll move approval accepting the donation from Stevens Community Medical Center for the fire department in the amount of $500.
I will second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, item B, Tourism Board Prairie Harvest Fest tentative schedule.
Well, and then I think there's a memo in there, correct? Did you get the memo?
Yes.
Memo on the recommendation from the tourism board to use lodging tax money for the Prairie Harvest Fest in $2,377 for various games. We've done this in the past for a community event, and then $5,000 for a fireworks show. So we're looking for a motion to approve that.
And I think it's important to point out, in case anybody is questioning, this is not a Heartland Motors festival. It is a community event that much of the community is getting behind and doing it. So that's why the city is okay to get involved.
They just took over the organization of it, is what they did.
Yes.
You know, and it's all gonna be out at the fairgrounds pretty much. And then all the other organizations are doing all the things that they normally did that same time.
I'll move approval of the tentative schedule for the Prairie Harvest Fest and the city amount of money for the fireworks and the games.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Ordinances and resolutions. I have a few of them. We have a resolution.
So Nick should be a,
Yeah, okay. We don't,
Thought I seen.
that's not in our,
it was on the
Electronic.
table. It's on the table.
It's on the
in
page.
front
Yeah,
of you.
okay, all right.
Yep, so he's got the sale day report and the resolution.
Welcome.
Hello, Mayor, council members. Nick Anhut with Ehlers and Associates. I'm here to discuss the results of a bond sale that was held on behalf of the city. Financing to be put in place for this year's street and utility improvement projects, as well as reimbursing some costs related to the street sweeper that was purchased earlier this year. The bonds in total were going to be offered at $2.2 million to fund about $2 million of this year's projects and $200,000 for the street sweeper. The primary source of repayment would be tax levy, as well as assessments coming from the benefiting property owners of the improvement projects, and the utilities contributing their share of the overall cost. I'm happy to say that we did have a discussion with Moody's Investor Service, and they did affirm the city's bond rating, A1 rating, which is good news, so affirmation that things are going well financially for the city. Moody's did have a discussion with Blaine, myself, Whitney, and we just discussed kind of where things are at economically here at the city, some growth potential, as well as your balanced operations within your general fund and overall financial picture, and reserve levels. And they thought that things were looking good. I'd say that they admittedly, it's been about 5 years since they evaluated the city, so we had to kind of brush them up, but they certainly were more positive in this latest report. So there is a attachment within that that kind of discusses briefly their findings, and I just suggest that, you know, in your off time when you're not too busy, maybe take a look at that report, and it gives you some impression of some of the positives that an independent evaluator kind of looks at the city. But with all that said, that bond rating helps us go out to the market so that we can obtain lower interest rates for the city. And we did receive 3 bids to purchase the bonds of the city. Low bid from Northland Securities in Minneapolis came in at a 3.65% true interest cost. So that's the total interest applied against both the street and equipment portion, all lumped together. And a cover bid from Baker Group was at 3.77, and then the high bid came from Baird out of Milwaukee at 3.82%. You know, these rates are a little bit elevated from where we saw things the last couple of years. I know we did a refinancing not too long ago, maybe 2 years. We were able to access much lower rates during the pandemic. The Federal Reserve has taken some steps to kind of raise those to try to curb inflation. I know we just talked about that in the insurance discussion, more of the same. But these are very competitive bids. Certainly just yesterday was a very volatile time in the marketplace, and these came out much better than some of the financings we observed just yesterday. So I'm pleased that things settled down a little bit. And this rate from Northland is very competitive. I should also mention that Dakota Bank here in Morris participated with Northland Securities, so they're not buying the entire, but they're forming a syndicate, a group of different banks and underwriters, pooling their money to purchase these bonds, and then they'll split them up. So you do have some local participation here from the community. With that said, the final sizing of the bonds will be $2.24 million. So there was a resolution prepared, a updated physical copy was given from your bond attorney with the results from the Northland Securities bid, but that final amount will be $2.24 million, 200 of which will go towards the street sweeper, and then the $2,040,000 going towards this year's street projects. Everything appears well and in place. When we look at the financial impact of this, the equipment part is going to be repaid from a 9-year tax levy, about $27,000 per year in debt service cost. If we apply the rate to that, it represents about a 3.33% interest rate or cost on financing that equipment. And then the remainder, the improvement portion, that's actually going to be a little bit longer. We're structuring that for a 15-year repayment with about a $73,000 levy impact. So the total debt service will be $190,000 per year, but assessments will pay a portion, utilities will pay a portion, and then the balance from the levy at about $73,000 that'll be included in your future budgets. So that'll be for impacting next year's levy for your adoption later this year. Other than that, I'd be happy to address any questions from the council, but did have a good result of the sale. It's good to see that we had 3 bids, competitive bidding, and we certainly would recommend moving ahead with the low bid from Northland Securities to lock in this financing so you can complete your projects and maintain your reserve levels at the city.
A little bit off from the 2% we had, I think the last time we did a big project like this.
Yeah, I'd say that not too far off from the historical norm. When we look back about 10 years at where I'll say maybe a 20-year interest rate would be, about 4%. But certainly when we look back the last 2-3 years, yeah, it's come up quite a bit, and it's been progressing since January. And that's kind of the state of the global economy, as you will.
It is what it is.
I should add that you will have the opportunity to prepay on these bonds in the future. So they do have a call provision, gives the city some flexibility. If you wanted to refinance them in the future, if rates do come back down at a lower level, you would be able to start doing that in about 9 years. You'd be able to prepay without any kind of penalty or any call premium.
Okay, great. What's your crystal ball say about what's gonna happen in the future? It's pretty cloudy.
Well, we expect some news from the Federal Reserve tomorrow that they're going to continue to ratchet up rates to try to curb inflation. So they try to raise interest rates to slow things down and potentially bring prices back down alongside that. Most of the forecasts think that that's going to happen multiple times this year. So it's not just going to be tomorrow, but it'll be happening maybe 1 or 2 more times throughout the course of the year. So we think rates will be on the climb at least this year and next. And then see how that actually works with inflation, whether or not that's going to persist into the future.
Right.
What did you say that time period was when we could refinance?
It's a few years down the
9
road,
years.
Did you
about
say
9
9
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So we were stuck with that for 9 years.
Well,
Kind of.
you've got some other bonds that we could potentially exercise options on.
Yeah.
So there are some other opportunities that we'll definitely
Hopefully
take a
it'll
look at.
easier.
Okay, any questions for Nick?
No, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming in here.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion accepting the resolution approving the sale of the 2.28.
4.
Okay, yeah, this is the 4 bond series 2022A.
I will second that.
Any discussion? It's expensive, but it's something that we have to keep going. This is we're gonna do that project, right?
Right,
We can't stop that project.
right.
So
Yep.
that is done, so we're gonna do it, we're gonna pay for it with this
Right.
this bond issue.
Yep.
We'll have roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Dillison,
Yes.
Waller,
Yes.
Selby,
Yes.
Derby,
Yes. We have a resolution authorizing a fund transfer and closing of a fund.
I was just gonna, hey, Nick, do we have documents that you want signed? You wanna hang on, you wanna do it? All right.
Okay. So, we're gonna close the airport master plan project.
Yep. Yeah, so originally when we did that, we took money from the liquor store to help pay for that. So this is the remaining balance in there, and we'll just put it back in the liquor store.
Oh, for the master plan, okay. yeah.
For the
I
master
remember
plan, that was, yeah, it was a small, that's good for like 25 years, so we wound up having to pay for that ourselves.
Okay, I will move approval on the resolution authorizing that fund transfer and the closing of that fund.
I'll second.
Any discussion? We'll have roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gullikson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Selby,
Yes.
Waller,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes. We have a resolution approving a Westmore quote to replace the airport gasoline tank system.
Yeah, so I think we talked about this a little bit before. The 100 low lead gas tank keeps moving up and down. Actually, if you go out there now, the pump area is like tipped and moves up and down and stuff. And one of the things that we looked at was if we do a state grant on that, it's going to require that we follow all the rules and regulations and everything that goes with the state grant for bids. And the engineer's estimate on that project right now is about $400,000 with a local share of about $120,000. And quite frankly, I think Benson just got done doing one. And actually, I talked to Aaron about finding a second quote because it's unique that we have a company right in town that does this. And so I actually am talking to a company that is going to possibly give us a second quote on this. Not many companies do this kind of work with these tanks, and Westmore actually, through Superior and their subsidiaries, have an ability to do it. So I'm recommending that rather than go get a state grant and pay the same amount of money or more, that we just go to a local company and get this done. The airport's closed. This includes taking out the old tank, putting, fixing everything up, putting up the new tank, and then my recommendation is we use the American Rescue Plan money. We've got about $250,000 that's available in there. Use that, and then we're done with the airport. But I would say, if you want to do this resolution, do it contingent upon me getting a second quote, and then I'll look at it. And I can't imagine that the second quote's going to be less than this one. But if that happens, then I'll bring it back and take a look at it with the city council. But then we're done. I mean, pretty much everything's going to be done out there by the end of the year. They thought it'd be like 6 to 8 weeks to get a tank. And then I talked to Jerry Henches about taking the fuel out of the current one because we bought it really cheap and it's 100 low lead and it doesn't really go bad. So we want to make sure we save that. But this spring we got water in the tank and they had to pump out the water. So that's my recommendation, is that we go ahead and do that.
And the old system is an underground system and this one is an above ground?
Yeah, so it's an underground tank that's got an above ground pump, and then actually that pump's tied into a card reader that is over by the jet fuel system. And so you swipe your card and then it activates the pump by this underground tank. And so then the pump's gonna be the same and everything. It's just that we're gonna take the tank out of the ground and put it above ground.
Good idea.
Water and aviation fuel is not a good mix.
Yeah, it's not, the pilots don't like that.
When you have problems.
Neither
it's
do
not like
passengers.
Pull over and
Passengers.
fix it, yes.
Well, I think we're very fortunate to have a tank company right here in Morris.
Very.
I think that quote would be a lot more if we were dealing with somebody in another state.
Well, the one company I found, they actually, I think it was Mankato, rejected a bid 3 times because the first one came in 75% over the engineer's estimate. That was the engineer's estimate, and yeah, it's just crazy.
Okay, so we have the resolution approving the Westmore quote contingent on getting a second quote.
I'll move on that resolution.
A second.
Any further discussion? We'll have roll call vote on the resolution, please.
Councilmember Waller,
Yes.
Selby,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Gullikson,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes. And we have a resolution approving an agreement with Mike Seahawk for public access channel system management.
And this is basically the same agreement we had before, we're just renewing it for a year. I did have a chance to trade a couple of emails with Mike. We know and understand that there's one less TV company here, but because Federated got out of that business. But the initial investment in the equipment to be able to put this public access information on the system is done with. We don't have to worry about that. And quite frankly, most of the work that Mike does doesn't matter if there's one or two. It's no more work if there's two of them. And he's been adding additional programming. So it's not just the normal stuff. So they're putting high school sports on and all kinds of
Oh,
stuff.
that's awesome.
So I'm recommending we just renew it.
I'll move on that resolution approving the agreement with Mike Seahawk for public access channel system management.
I will second.
Any further discussion? We'll have roll call vote on the resolution, please.
Councilmember Selby,
Yes.
Waller,
Yes.
Ellison,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Mayor Beast,
Yes. We have a resolution approving an IT services agreement with Lakes.
Lakes Country Service
Country
Cooperative.
Service.
They do a fabulous job, and quite frankly, Whitney and I get really nervous about computer stuff. In this day and age, we've been able to upgrade some server things to protect our data, and there's a couple other things that we're working on that we'll probably present to you. But basically, this is just a renewal, and it's 3% a year, and you know, they do a very good job of responding to what we need from them, and we're part of the Lakes Country Service Cooperative, and we've used them before for other things. So
Is that just a flat fee then, or do they charge, I mean, that's a fee and then they charge by the hour?
yeah, it's just
too?
flat fee, and then we call them and they come and they
Well, it's pretty inexpensive.
and some of the stuff that you can do right online, you know, they actually will just you turn on your computer and they'll be able to go on and, you know, get into it and look at it. And we've updated some computers recently.
It's pretty inexpensive, to be honest, for IT services that you don't have to pay extra. So I'll move on that resolution approving an IT services agreement with Lakes Country Services Co-op for 2023 to 2025.
I will second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Everybody's iPad working okay
So far.
so far?
Work even better once we renew.
Couple years?
Yeah.
Had these couple years?
Yeah.
I'd say more than that,
Probably.
way before
Well, we had-
COVID,
It's-
so
yeah,
about
it's been-
4 or
yeah.
5.
Well, that
yeah.
Grant, the IT guy, he's not around anymore, is he?
Right.
Grant,
right.
wasn't he the
I
original
don't know,
IT
you guys
guy?
got it written on your boxes still?
I do.
Might want to ask if there's anything we should do with
Okay.
these things, you know, just to make sure that we
Yeah.
keep them going.
Yeah, we can do that.
Why wouldn't we ever
Okay.
write it down somewhere?
So,
Yeah, Grant
we have
was
a
the
motion
IT
and a
guy.
second?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, any further discussion?
I digress.
Sorry to get this sidetracked. We will have roll call vote for the resolution, please.
Councilmember Selby,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Waller,
Yes.
Ellison,
Yes.
Mayor Beast,
Yes. Okay, there's some information Blaine provided us on ADA requirements. We don't need to take any action. Does everybody want to talk about it?
No, thank you for
Yeah,
doing
Yes,
that, Blaine. I know
for
it was
sure.
probably a lot of work on your end, but I was very
Well,
happy
and
with-
there's a few things that we have to do, so
Yeah.
we'll be getting at that.
All right, and city manager's newsletter.
I'll just throw it out for any questions you might have. Because we have to go tour parks, sign some documents and tour parks.
oh, I got a question regarding the spray park, because I've seen it a couple times. When that is down, is that posted somewhere?
No, but we could.
Can we
I
do
mean,
that,
yeah,
please? Because that would
we
save
should.
a lot of people's, okay, I'm
Yeah.
exaggerating a lot, but there are
No.
several people that.
No, we do get,
Yeah, you get the
we
calls,
get
I
contacts from people that
contacted.
want to know, including nieces.
Yeah, well, yeah,
It's like-
yeah.
They
Yep.
want to know if they're going to be able to go out there, but that is a very popular thing.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
it was
and
busy
it's
today.
gonna be busy,
Yesterday.
so, yeah. And the new playground equipment, can you take a picture and put that on Facebook?
Sure,
'Cause
yeah.
that looks fantastic. I don't know
Yeah,
if
it looks
anybody's.
Yeah,
ever
there's
done
one
that.
more one more piece that has to come in for
Okay.
that, and then, yeah.
It looks
Yeah,
really
it turned
cool.
out really good.
Yeah.
Are all the bathrooms open in all the parks?
I think, as far as I know, they are. We
Why
were
was the
gonna put-
one closed down? a couple
Because
weeks ago?
the people coming in to fix the damage,
Oh,
so we closed it while they came in to fix the damage. But then I think, I don't know, we were supposed to bring some porta potties over to east
there
side.
was some. I know
Yeah.
on east side there was
It was
some.
east side.
Yeah.
So if they're
Just
gone,
late- just lately.
then they must have
Like a
fixed it
couple
up.
weeks ago it
Oh,
was.
they were there that long?
Well, we'll find
Yeah.
out when we go around today, and just,
Oh, yeah, right, okay.
Russ will know.
I'll go.
Okay, anything else on the city manager's newsletter? Any other business that needs to come before the council? We have a parks tour afterwards,
Yeah, so hopefully
so
there's a bunch
hopefully
of
they're
people
still,
waiting outside.
they're still here, hopefully. Okay.
Send a reminder just Thursday morning, please, just
Yeah.
for our meeting, just
Yeah,
as
that'd be-
a,
Yeah, that'd be great.
just to remind everybody, it's only a couple days away, but
And please send it, Ashley, to everybody's personal
Cell
emails.
phone, or cell
In
phone.
addition,
Yeah, send us a
cell
text or
phone.
something.
Text would be better,
Text would be great.
if that's
Oh, yeah.
possible.
Do that.
Do we do that?
Just the,
I think we can.
I think so. Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
it's, yeah,
we're not having a chat, we're just giving you.
notice.
Yeah.
Write it on your
Yeah.
forehead.
Okay, anything else?
What do you-
Meeting adjourned.
So.